Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Narahari. Thank you, Mataji, for having us here at your wonderful home. Everyone has been in the kirtan before, right? Okay, wonderful. So my wife was supposed to be here, but she got sick. She was supposed to talk. Usually I don't talk. She does the talking, I do the chanting. But somehow she got a little sick. She can't even talk. She lost her voice. So I will speak a little bit about my kirtan journey in Vrindavan, which was for me quite important for the service that I do now. So kirtan has been something very important in my life since basically growing up. My parents joined when I was 5 years old, and I got my first drum, the mridanga, when I was 5. And I always used to go to the temple, bringing my drum, and I didn't know how to play. I was just a kid. Just bang on the mridanga in the kirtan, and the brahmacharis, the local monks, they would get angry. They would tell me to stop playing. I would cry and run to my parents, but every Sunday I would keep on going. And then when I was about 7, 8 years old, I was listening to those cassettes. And back in the days we had cassettes. Many of you haven't seen cassettes, the young generations, right? You don't know what a cassette is.
Oh, it's something you put inside. Something like that.
Yeah, so back in the days we had cassettes. So I used to listen to these old recordings of Bayaski Prabhu, and there's Risharaj Prabhu, these very old kirtan leaders, and I would especially listen to the mridanga playing, to the rhythm of the mridanga, and this is how basically I learned the mridanga, just by hearing the mridanga playing on these recordings. And whatever, we go through teenage, rebellion, but kirtan always kept me safe. That was my safe heaven. And when I was 18, I decided to go to Vyndhamvale, which is the holy land of Bhakti, and join the 24-hour kirtan there. Srila Prabhupada wanted 24 hours of kirtan going on in our ISKCON temple in Vrindavan and Mayapur, so that when people come, they would experience, the power of the chanting in these holy places. And because in Vrindavan there's more than 5,000 temples. And many of these temples, they're very beautiful, they're very old, but sometimes we go, there's something missing, and that missing is the chanting. Because the chanting, this is what really gives life. The chanting is the soul. Without the chanting, we can't. It's like breathing. We need to breathe. So the chanting is the same. We need to chant to be able to be actually alive. So that we think, many times we think, this chanting is too simple. We need some higher things. We need to study, high philosophy and, very advanced pastimes of Radha and Krishna. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is Srila Prabhupada's guru. He tells us that just by chanting the holy names of the Lord, His names, His pastimes, His glories will be automatically revealed. And Srila Prabhupada says this chanting is not an artificial imposition on the mind. We chant this mantra with full attention, with full love and devotion. Leaving the results up to Krishna. If nothing's happening in the heart, we just keep on chanting. Because this is the process of purifying the heart. And this is also the process of, this is also the goal. Because this chanting is Krishna himself. This chanting is pure love of God. So that's why we're here. To try and purify the heart, and just one day, hopefully, by chanting this mantra, fall in love with Krishna. That's the beauty. Srila Prabhupada went to America with 40 Indian rupees in his pocket. He sat down. He tried various ways to spread this mantra, and ultimately he sat down under a tree in the park in New York, just with a pair of kartals, and started chanting this mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And because his chanting was so pure and powerful, and he had unflinching faith in his Guru's words, he changed the lives of so many people. And this is why we're here. I never thought I'd come to Australia. I never thought I'd go to America. I never thought I'd be traveling. But by his faith in this chanting, in the mantra, he opens gates for many, many of us. Gates, of the heart. Gates to Krishna's lotus feet. So this is what Srila Prabhupada did. So we need to be always grateful and thankful to Srila Prabhupada for having given us this very powerful and wonderful gift of chanting the holy names. Without Srila Prabhupada, we wouldn't be here. So when I was 18, I went to Vrindavan. I actually was going to the best boys' school in Mauritius, British school. And what I was studying was quite boring, chemistry and physics. and it was just not for me. So anyway, I'm just cutting the story, make it a little shorter. So I decided to go to Vrindavan. And that was in January 1992. I first left Mauritius, I just turned 18. And I've been living in a protected, family, very guarded. And first time living the house, going to quite a special place actually, India. It was a culture shock. I landed in Delhi, it was like January 1992, and it was right in the middle of winter. In Mauritius, there's practically no winters. You just wear a jacket or a sweater, during winter. That's it. And I took a bus from the airport to this bus station that goes to the bus goes to Mathura. And there was no space to keep my bag, so I kept it in the middle, where people walk. And people were walking on my back. And I thought, where did I come? And when I was sitting, there was no windows. The glass was broken. And there was this cold air coming, and it was like first experience of cold. And then after 4 hours, because the roads back in the days, they were like really bad roads. Now we have very good roads. reach Vrindavan in 2 hours, or 2.5 hours. But it took us like 4 hours, and I've never taken a road trip for 4 hours, because in Mauritius, to go from the north to the south of the island, it takes like 2 hours. 1.5, yeah. 1.5, 2 hours, and I was worried. So I was asking the bus conductor every half an hour, "Are we getting there?" I didn't know where they were taking me. And finally we got to Mathura, we got to the temple, and I stayed in the guest house and went to the temple where they have the 24-hour kirtan. So I sat down, and somehow there's one of the devotees, said, "Oh, you want to play Mridanga?" And I said, "Oh, sure, why not?" So I played Mridanga for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and then this older gentleman came. He had red beard and red hair, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, you play nice Mridanga, why don't you join the 24-hour kirtan?" And I looked at him and said, "Actually, I came to join the 24-hour kirtan, and I have a letter of recommendation for Aindradas." And he looked at me and smiled. He said, "I am Aindradas." And I didn't expect Indra Prabhu to be like, this very exotic personality, very different, Avadhuta. And the day after, I moved to the ashram. And in Mauritius, one of my friends gave me a sleeping bag. We never used sleeping bags in Mauritius. But he gave me a sleeping bag and the zip was broken. So I got into the room and there was no mattress, there was no bed. So I just got only one of these mats. And that's how I slept, with a sleeping bag. And the floor was like so cold. There's no heating, there's nothing. And to go to the bathroom, you had to run. You had to run about 50, 60 meters to go to the bathroom. So I was wondering, where did I come? I was 18 years old and, all these suffering and austerities. And somehow or other, I just thought, I'm just going to go through this. And I became Indra Prabhu's Mridanga player, and we recorded Vrindavan Melas. It's 3 Vrindavan Melas, and prayers to Dasa Raja and Braja Vilas. And every day I would go to the deities, Gaurnitai, Krishna Balaram, and Radha Shyam Sundar, and I would pray to them, "Please make me become the best Vrindavan player." That was my prayer, when I was 18, 19 years old. And when we started recording Vrindavan Melas, it was recorded in the temple room at night, when everybody, the temple would be shut. The mantra would be kept going. Someone would chant japa just to keep the mantra going while we were recording. So basically, Indra Prabhu would sit with the harmonium, and I would be with the mridanga. So these were the 2 tracks, the first 2 tracks that we would play. So he would chant, I would play. He would make some mistakes, he would stop, we would have to redo it again. I would make some mistakes in the mridanga, we had to do it over again. So it was back and forth like 20, 30 times, because he wanted everything to be perfect. And by the time we finished the recording, we added all the backup vocals, the other instruments. I was like, I don't want to hear this recording again, because we worked so hard on it. It's like, wow, took all the energies. And Indra Prabhu never wanted to go to like a professional studio in Delhi, because he wanted to sit in Vrindavan and give Vrindavan to the whole world. Because whatever you do in Vrindavan, is multiplied by 1,000 times. So this chanting, in Vrindavan is multiplied by 1,000 times. And this is what he wanted to give to the whole world. So, apart from playing the mridanga and the kartals and the recordings, my service was also to go and find, the sounds of Vrindavan. So Indra Prabhu lent me his Sony professional cassette recorder. Never seen it in your life. And I would go around Vrindavan, trying to get some sounds. Sometimes we would go together. One day we went to this beautiful place. There was all these nice forests. Nowadays you go to Vrindavan, you don't find any forests anymore. It's just a concrete jungle. It's quite, pitiful. But back in the days we had tamal trees and kadamba trees and peacocks. So there was 20, 30 peacocks, and we would hide and turn on the recording machine, and then we would record the peacocks. And then another day I just went alone down to Loy Bazaar, to the market. I tried many places, and I couldn't, there's nothing coming in mind, no ideas of what to record. So I went to Radha Gokulananda temple. I thought I would just go there, take darshan of Radha Raman and Radha Gokulananda. And as I entered the temple of Radha Gokulananda, there was this Bengali lady using the hand pump, pumping water, and singing Radhe Radhe. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So I took my microphone and started recording, and she stopped. I'm like, no, this is the best thing of my day right now. I need this. Please keep on going. So she kept on going, and I got this on the recorder, and this was added to the Vrindavan Melas. So Vrindavan Melas is, the whole idea was to give Vrindavan to the whole world. And Indra Prabhu did that so wonderfully and so powerfully, because his conviction, his faith in the holy names was unflinching. Just by being in Vrindavan and just doing very strict sadhana. He would chant 64 rounds or more every day. He would read 4 or 5 hours of Prabhupada's books and literatures from our acharyas. And one day, he came up to my room. He knocked on the door. He said, Madhava, let's go clean the toilets. And I was 18 years old. I never cleaned toilets ever in my life. I thought he was joking. I said, no. And he said, oh, this is going to be good for you. This will clean your heart. And I was thinking, I was trying to do some math there. How cleaning the toilets is going to clean my heart. Huh? Yes? Then he said, no, I still said no. I was like, no way, I'm not going to clean those brahmachari toilets. And this was back in the days, 35 years ago or something. And then he just left. He went to his room, and my room had this screen door for the mosquitoes. So I looked through the screen door. He came out of his room with his gamcha and a gallon of acid and a pair of gloves. And he was walking towards the toilets. And it just gave me 1 minute to just ponder and reflect. Here's this amazing devotee, who has unflinching faith in Krishna's names, willing to get his hands dirty to clean, the toilets. And he's also initiated by Srila Prabhupada here. And I thought, who am I? This 18-year-old kid, full of pride and ego. So I just put my gamcha on. And I ran to the bathrooms, to the toilets, and we cleaned toilets for like 3-4 hours. And Prabhu was singing. He was blissful. He was just chanting, and he was so happy. And that rubbed off on me. We were all both chanting together. There was only 2 of us. And I actually felt layers and layers of dust being cleansed from the heart. And I knew what he said, cleaning the bathrooms will clean your heart. Because one of the main ingredients that we need in kirtan is humility. Without humility, Krishna won't accept our offering. Krishna has the best. Krishna has the best singers. Krishna has the best dancers. Krishna has the best drummers. Our singing is not even compared to the frogs in the spiritual world. The frogs sing better than us. But what Krishna needs is our sincerity, our bhakti, our love, our devotion. That's all he needs. Not the fancy, instrument playing or voices. No. That's why humility is so important. To be able to attract Krishna's attention. So, anyway, just a few things I wanted to share before we start kirtan. My wife talks much better, but this was just me. Anyone wants to ask something? Question, or wants to add something about Vrindavan or 24 kirtan? I'm good to do. Yes. Any question?
Was there ever a time in your life when you didn't play kirtan every day?
Yes. Yes, of course, yeah. Yeah, there were times when, I had doubts. Because, my parents joined in 1978. They just missed. Prabhupada came to Mauritius in 1975. And my parents were already they were already practicing some kind of a spiritual path, transcendental meditation. And they joined by getting it back to Godhead. And growing up in the movement, there was always ups and downs. Seeing, from the leaders of the society, and so it was hard for me to put my trust. But chanting kept me going. This chanting, there's nothing wrong about the chanting. There's nothing wrong about the philosophy. There's nothing wrong about Prabhupada's teaching. Everything is found in Prabhupada's books. Everything is found in this mantra. Srila Prabhupada says, this mantra contains everything that we need to go back home, back to Godhead. We don't need to look anywhere else. But my faith was not, I didn't lose my faith in the chanting. It was just, that some things that happened, that kind of shook my faith a bit. But no, chanting was my solace, my shelter. Yes, brother.
I've sometimes heard that when you're chanting with a humble state of mind, the Lord will manifest some of those pastimes in front of you.
Yes.
Have you ever come across that experience?
That's a...
It's a personal, but
That's quite
maybe if you could share the realization of just the potency of the association with Holy Name.
Yes, definitely. my best experiences of kirtan was when I was doing the night shift in Wyndhamvale. Wyndhamvale, we have this 24-hour kirtan going on. And for one whole year, I chose to do the night shift, what I call the graveyard shift, from 10 o'clock at night to 4:30 in the morning. And that's 6.5 hours. And most of the time, I was just alone. There's no one. That means no toilet breaks, no drinking water, nothing. Just, I had to keep the mantra going. Or else, I would be the one breaking that flow of the mantra. So there was a lot of pressure. And there were days where my mind was not in the kirtan. It was not in the mantra. I was thinking of everything else, sleep, food, how boring this was. But then there was days where I was just like, okay, 6.5 hours, I'm just going to try and surrender. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to chant this name, Krishna's names. You make it happen, or if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to chant. And when we try and surrender, this is when the magic happens. And this 6.5 hours, they just go by. It's just like 2 minutes. We just started chanting, it's over. Just like, when was it? Friday. We had a 2-hour kirtan. And it just felt like 10 minutes. We just started and it was over. So that's the power of the holy name. That's right there, the holy name's reciprocating, showing that Krishna in the form of the names is timeless, is eternal. But then, when we keep on surrendering and just chanting with full attention, with sincerity, with love and devotion, like Prabhupada says, like a child crying for its mother, then there's gates in the heart that opens, and then Krishna comes. Krishna's forms, qualities, pastimes, they just come naturally. And Prabhupada says it's not an artificial imposition of the mind. It happens when we surrender and humbly beg the Lord to come and appear in our hearts and our tongues. Then that's powerful, that's beautiful. So Krishna is the person. Krishna is his names. Okay, Guru? Anyone else?
It was good you shared the pastime, like Andrew Prabhu and yourself were actually cleaning the toilet. It's actually a good inspiration for like new kids trying to become kirtan stars or whatever, because the focus is like, I'm just going to do kirtan. But it's so good to hear that Andrew Prabhu himself, who is an inspiration for everyone, like he's showing by example that it's not that they just sit there and kirtan's my service, but he actually did menial service.
Yes.
It's an inspiration, like.
Yes, when we're chanting Hare Krishna, what is the meaning of chanting Hare Krishna? What does Prabhupada tells us? My dear Lord, please engage me in your service. And then when seva comes, we refuse. We're like, oh, my service is only to do kirtan. I can't clean the toilets, I can't clean the temple, I can't wash the pots. My seva is only kirtan. We failed right there. We just failed that test. And star, the real star is the mantra. We are not the star. We don't make anything happen. We are just the servant, or trying to be the servant of the holy names. The star is the mantra. The star is Krishna. We are nobody. It's nowadays, we're breeding rock stars, kirtans. This is not This is not kirtan. Kirtan is very simple. When we sit down, we chant only for Krishna's pleasure. But one of the instructions that Ain Prabhu gave me when I was leaving Vrindavan, he said, wherever you go, chant Hare Krishna, even if you have to chant to the four walls, even if there's no one around, just chant. Because this is your connection to Krishna through this mantra. There's no need to impress anyone. This is the wrong place. Kirtan is, but it's happening. It's happening because there's no training. And the youth, they have talents, they have beautiful voice, they can play fancy melodies on the harmonium. But where's the depth? The depth comes when we surrender, when we go through training and austerity, winter and summer, you just keep on chanting, for the pleasure of the Lord, not because, there's people around. You have to, make a show, impress people. This is not kirtan. So that rock star business is not kirtan. Anyone else?
Also the sadhana, like
sadhana is very, very important. Sorry if I'm just I'm not pointing fingers. I was a young boy also when I started doing kirtan. But what I notice is many of the young kirtan singers, they sing so wonderfully. It's just amazing. I can't even sing like this. And but you don't see them chant japa. You don't see them do any seva. And once I asked Radhanath Swami, I said, what is more important, chanting japa or doing kirtan? What did he say? Huh? Both. He said, if your japa is good, automatically your kirtan will be good. And if your kirtan is good, then the quality of your japa would be good too. So both are very important because they both feed each other. Japa is internal, it grounds you. It gives you that stability, that firm faith in the chanting. And when we go out there, we sit down in the crowd. When we do kirtan, we're not influenced by whatever is going on around us. The name, fame, adoration. Whatever comes. When we do kirtan, we're not affected by that. This comes from a strong sadhana. So sadhana is very, very important. Once one of the Gurukuli, one of my friends actually, he went up to Indra Prabhu. He said, japa is not the Yuga Dharma, kirtan is the Yuga Dharma. And Indra Prabhu, he has red hair, he's wild, when he gets angry, you better run away. He looked at him with fire in his eyes. He said, I chant 64 rounds or more. That's why my kirtans are so powerful. And you can't even chant your 16 rounds. What do you think your kirtan is? He said, you chant your 16 rounds first and then you lead kirtan. So, very important. Sadhana is very, very important because this is the foundation. If the foundation is not strong, somewhere down the road, the building is going to crumble down. Please pass on that message to the youth who've never heard cassettes before. Anyone else? One more? And then we can, yes, Bruce.
Prabhu, you
said the rock stars who does kirtan, that is not right. And we see in ISKCON there are a lot of people who are doing performances after performances, and they don't stick to Hare Krishna mantra, but many other things comes into the shows. How do we understand what's happening in current ISKCON?
Well, first thing, kirtan is not a show. Kirtan is a performance, if I may correct you. I mean, we can do things to bring new people in, but we need to be very careful, because it's a very fine line. It's like walking on a razor's edge. You don't have the goal straight, which is like, to purely chant the holy names. It's very dangerous. Especially when people put you on a pedestal, that's and we are not qualified to be on that pedestal. So it gets to the head, it gets to the ego, it gets everywhere. It can be destructive, it can be constructive also. So we have to wait. Are we qualified to be up there to give it out to the people? Or just being simple and just being someone simple and just chant for Krishna's pleasure without having to deal with all this craziness. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Sorry for making the head work a little bit, but this is so important, because kirtan is this is the fastest way to go back home, back to Godhead. These 3 words is so powerful. This is Krishna. Let's chant.
Can you